Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Now before I begin, and for those of you who are new to this series, my aim is to help those who are learning a certain aspect of the game and then get them up to a comfortable level where they can watch a more detailed tutorial without being overwhelmed by it. Okay, on to today's topic, trigger. Now, typically a trigger needs three things for it to work. Okay, one is the trigger itself, two is the condition, and three is the task. Now with these three things in mind and on the screen, how do I explain what a trigger is? Think of it as this sentence. If this happens, do that. Okay? Now, with this sentence and then the three items in mind, let's identify what are the three items in this sentence. Okay? If, which is the trigger, then this happens is a condition. Do that is a task. Make sense? Now, with all of that in mind, let's take a look at how do you fiddle around with the trigger and all that stuff. I'm going to remove the left tab just to reduce distraction and all that stuff. Okay, go ahead and take a look at the right tab. You have triggers, which is F3, and then you place down the first trigger, which I usually call this a base trigger, and then all the last three are scan trigger. That's how I call it. There's nothing special between the first one and these last three triggers because they are exactly the same. Well, aside from the fact that they look like that, with this one which I have a bounding, what do you call it, bounding box? Bounding box of 10 meters by 10 meters by 10 meters. And then this is a bounding area of 100 meter diameter. Okay, but either way, all of these are the same. All of the last three is exactly the same as this one. Okay, I'll teach you how later on. Now let's take a look at this attribute. You can either double click on it or right click and then head to attributes. Okay. Now how do you pull out this box earlier that I showed you? You can either go type in the size of it, length, width, and height. Now by default, height is currently set at -1, which is infinite or infinite. Okay. You can also pull out a shape, as I'll show you later on. So say for example, I want a rectangular shape by say 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. So 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, a rectangle. You see how it is right now. So it's a 2 times 2 times 2 bounding area. I'll call it, or scan area, however you want to call it. All right. Now let's just leave it that way first. Okay, you can experiment with this transformation at your own time. More importantly, I want to take a look at trigger activation and trigger expression. Now this is activation, which is your condition. In this case, I want to put it, say, any player. You can put it, be it Radio Alpha Bravo Charlie, or maybe a side or faction, or anybody, meaning to say any AI or any entity that, how should I put this? Any living entity that walks into this bounding area. Okay. Typically, this area, this trigger activation, is used in conjunction with your bounding or your scan area. Okay, well, it really depends on it though. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Experiment with it, have fun with it, you know. So in this case, I'm going to put any player. Now that you see that this activation type lit up, okay, if I put none, it's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen to this. You can't click on it. Okay, you can't play with it. Now I'm going to put any player activation type to present. What this means is that if any player is present in this scan area, then the trigger, this is a condition by the way, so the condition is if any player is present in this scan area, then the trigger will execute something. Make sense? Okay. Now let's take a look at the trigger expression. This is slightly more advanced, but don't worry, there are a lot of tutorials out there that will help you out. Will help you with all of this. Now this is obviously a condition, as you can see. And then on activation and on deactivation are tasks that the trigger will execute once this condition is met. Okay. There's nothing much to do with timer and effects because this is very easy to understand. Now I'm going to show you something simple. How do you show and hide a specific item, an object, or a unit? Okay. Let's just press OK and confirm that I want any player to be present within this scan area, and then when that happens, the task will be executed. Okay. Now we got a trigger here. Okay, we need a condition to happen. Condition being any player. So any player, which I'm just gonna plop one guy down here. Alright. Let's just put it this corner so later on when I walk into it. Now take note, the reason why I'm putting it in this corner, and then maybe say I'll just put a prop, give me a minute. I'll explain later on. Now the reason being why I'm putting cones out here is because once you load into the game, you will not be able to see this blue bounding or scan area. Okay, so it's easier for me to know that where I'm walking into. Okay, now with a condition, now that I have a trigger, now that I have a condition, I need the trigger to complete a task. Okay, the task being to show an object. Now in order to show an object, you need to hide an object first. Make sense? So navigate your way to systems, which is F5, and then scroll slightly downwards till you can find object modifiers. Okay, expand that, and then scroll slightly downwards. Look for show/hide. Okay, I'm gonna put now this show/hide requires two modules for it to work. Well, technically it doesn't really need two, but in this case we need two of those. Okay, one is to hide the unit, and then one is to show the unit afterwards. Okay, I'm just gonna place 1, 2 down here, easier for you to view. I hope you guys can see this easily though, honestly. Okay, now let's take a look at what's inside this show hide module. Okay, I'm gonna double click, or you can right click and then properties. Now the two most obvious thing will be apply to and action. Okay, now by default, when you place the unit down, when you place the module down, it's always set to hide units. Okay, now these two right now is hide unit, which I don't want it to happen. I want it to have a show, and I want it to have hide. So we know that this is hide. The right side is hide because by default. Now let's change the left side to show. See, now on the left side you can show units. Okay, I'll touch on apply to all of these things later on. Okay, so but for now, groups of synchronized objects. Now our objective is to hide units at the start of the game, and then show units when I step into the trigger. Make sense? Now we need the units to show hide. Alright, I'm just gonna put a fire team. Alright, now with all of these pieces in front of us, I'm just gonna hide the right side panel. Okay, now let's focus on all these pieces. So I'm just going to repeat a lot of things. I apologize for that, but I want to make things clear and easy for you to understand, and make sure that you know at the end of this tutorial, you know what you are doing. Okay. Okay. I'm going to repeat this one more time. Okay. So you have me. Okay. You have a trigger. This trigger is set to any player who is present within this bounding area or scan area. Once the condition is met, the trigger will execute a task. Okay. And then you have 2 times show hide module. One is set to show, and one is set to hide. And then you have the units that you want to show and hide. Okay? Up to this point, make sense? Now, like I mentioned, I probably did mention earlier, in order to show a unit, you need to hide the unit first. Now let's hide the unit. Okay? Simply go to the hide module. Simply go to the module that is set to hide, which is this one on the right side. Right click and then hover down to hover over connect, sync to. Now you'll see this line or web, how you want to call it, that's attached to my cursor. Now you need to attach it to the team leader, well in this case the team leader of the unit. Okay, so you hover over there, and then once you see the team leader light up, what you can do is do a left click, and then it's bound to this team leader. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to talk about what are these group synchronized to group and all that stuff. Okay, so currently this hide module is synced to one person or one unit. Okay, this is a group, this is a unit. Right? Let's make things simple. Now, when you take a look at this apply to, right, you will see synchronized object only, groups of synchronized objects, and objects in synchronized triggers. I'm not going to go to the last one because it's really complicated. Okay, I wouldn't say really complicated, but complicated enough to be confusing. Okay, I'm going to touch on these two, synchronized objects only and groups of synchronized objects. Make sense? Now, if I were to set to synchronize objects only, okay, and then I press OK. So at the start of this, when I press play scenario, this guy will be hidden. This one and only guy will be hidden. The rest of these 3 other guys will not be hidden because it is set to synchronize objects only. So this is just one item, okay? Say for example, you need, I don't know, somehow you want to use this, okay? Meaning to say that you have to connect, do the same step, connect, sync to, and then to this 3 other guys. Oops, I accidentally disconnected one of them. Okay. Now, the easier thing to do is to use groups of synchronized objects. Meaning to say, this is a group. You sync to, as long as you sync to either one of them, the effect will be applied to this specific group only, which in this case will be alpha 1, 2. Alright. Now, once it's hidden, the next step is to have the trigger execute the show property, I would say, or the show module. Okay. So we have trigger. You should go to connect sync to. Now this web, you need to bind it to the show, the module that is set to show. Okay, which in this case on the left side. Okay. Now it's not done yet. You need to sync the show you need to sync the module that is set to show. You need to sync it to the unit you want to show. Make sense? Okay, which in this case is the team leader. Once again, if you check the properties, it's show units and then groups of synchronized objects. I have already explained groups of synchronized objects. Just go back a little bit and you hear me saying that. Okay, now with all of this in mind, you can take a screenshot or whatever, I don't know. This is typically how I will set up a show hide scenario, I would say. Okay. Now with all of this all connected, everything's done up. Okay, I'm just gonna repeat this again, and let's just simulate. All right. Let's just simulate the results. Now at the start of the game, your units will be hidden with this this module that is set to hide. Okay. Now once everything is hidden and your game starts, your trigger at this point is set to any player who is present within this area will activate the trigger and you will execute a task. In this case, the task being show units. Okay, so I will walk in here into this area. Now I'm a player, so any player present. Now that I'm in this area, your trigger will say, "Oh, okay, time for me to execute a task." Now you will go to this this module which is set to show, and then it will show this bunch of guys. Okay, make sense? Okay, let's do it for real. Okay. So take note. I'm going to go up close. Take note that the minute I'm within this scan area, these guys will appear. Okay. Also, a little bonus. I'm going to show you something. What you can do during testing also is to have a sound. Okay, there's a lot of sound depending on the mods that you have downloaded. I'm just going to look for something really simple, something really distinct. I think I remember seeing firing. What do you do with firing drill or something like that? Yep, here we go. Firing drills. I want to do start. You can preview the sound via this play button. It should sound like this. Okay, that beep sound when I enter the trigger. Okay. This is 000, which means to say it's instant. Okay, let's go. Okay, so here we are loaded as a character, as a playable character. Now you realize that you don't see this this blue bounding box or this blue scan area, right? Like I mentioned earlier, once you are in a scenario, you will not be able to see the bounding box or the scan area. Okay. Now let's recap again. Now that the unit is hidden via a show hide module that is set to hide, if I wanted to, well, in this case, when I step into this area which is within the cone, you will hear a beep, and then you will see these units being shown. All right, because right now they're hidden. You can't see them. Okay, so ready? Let's go. Make sense? Easy? Okay. Let's just return to the editor. Alright, so this is pretty much how you use a trigger. There are also a lot of examples out there. I'm very sure you can easily find a lot of examples and a lot of unique and interesting ways to use a trigger. Okay. Okay, that's all for today. I hope you guys learned something new, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!